song 5 years ago, hoping for peace in the north of Ireland. And things are looking better than ever, so let's hope for peace for Christmas.
Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn here. This is episode number 144, Peace. Peace. We're here on the 17th of September, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tanner and I are in the studio on the 16th at 7:30 a.m. Good morning, Tanner.
Good morning, David.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Can you do me a favor?
What's up?
There's a thumbnail of McCarthy era peace symbol that I sent you. Could you put that up you'll find it on the script of tonight's episode's about peace. It's about the importance of peace, and it's about the importance of understanding the history of these two ideologies, Republicanism and the Democrat liberal order, and vote correctly if you want to vote for peace. You know, I've been advocating for this for a very long time. When I came into the movement, it's kind of a movie. When I came into the movement, it was much more jingoistic, if you can want to look up that word. It was much more aggressive. And over the course of the last 3 years, the movement of the American citizens has become very focused on peace and war. Why? Because we're in World War III right now. Do you got that peace symbol? Can you put that up?
Yep.
Okay, so here we are. You can see this. This is beautiful. This is a iconic image from 1968 when the Democrat Party was the party of free speech, freedom of assembly, human rights, civil rights, anti-military industrial complex, anti-foreign involvement, and peace. And they ran a champion from right here in Minnesota. His name was Senator Eugene McCarthy, a name I bet you don't know.
I've definitely heard the name McCarthy, but I don't know the story behind him.
Well, there's another famous McCarthy, right?
Oh.
There's two McCarthys.
Oh, okay. So I probably know the other one.
You probably know the other one. We probably need to spend several sessions on the other McCarthy, the senator from Wisconsin,
Okay.
who was...
I think that's exactly who I'm thinking
That's
of.
the one you're thinking.
Senator
This guy was a candidate. My mother was a young Democrat Party activist. She'd already been involved probably for, 4 or 5 years. And then McCarthy emerged as a candidate. And it was a clear choice in 1968. There was two groups. There was a Republican group that was pro-military, pro-war, pro-globalism, pro-everything the United States did. Whatever the United States did was A-OK, because we were at the end of the first turning, and those were the older folks that had been the greatest generation, and they'd lived through the hardships of World War II, and they felt vindicated, and they felt that they lived in a great country. And America was a great country, is a great country. But out of that World War II period, as we talked about in the last episode, Truman changed the nature of our politics. We had been living in republicanism, and then he had the Truman Doctrine right after World War II, and we got into this post-World War II Democrat liberal order where Truman, Brett be President Harry Truman, Democrat, indicated that the United States of America would defend free peoples that were living under democratic processes from threats either exterior or interior to those polities. That was a big departure for this country. And right away, we got involved in the Korean War. Right away. We do know there was a Korean War, right? You've heard of that one. How many of you know there was a Korean War? It was a real war. It was a bloody war where the United Nations of World War II sans one of the allies, that would be the Russians. Oh, sans another ally, that'd be the Chinese. It was a different United Nations. It was no longer united with Russia and China. That was actually a war against Russia and China in Korea. Very bloody, very brutal. And then without much rest time, right into Vietnam, the U.S. military went. And the young people on the campuses, starting, I would say, in about 65, 66, they started to protest the war. And, because I was there, okay? I mean, I have memories of this. Most of the reason people were protesting, they didn't want to get drafted and go to war. I mean, I know there was some ideological framework. There was a communist revolution using the war as a means to have a revolution. And it failed. That revolution failed. But there was a peace movement. And, from my perspective, if you're personal about it and you just say, I don't want to kill anybody and I sure don't want to get killed. Or if you're at a more philosophical level where you say, what kind of country am I living in? Why are we always at war? I want to do this. It really doesn't matter to me why a person is anti-war. Just that they are anti-war. Now, there was a distinction that was made. There was a distinction. If you were just personally not wanting to get your ass blown off, you were a coward. And if you were a philosophical protester, you were still a coward, but a different kind of a coward. And that's where we were at. And, we suffered with that because the label, the judgment that those that didn't want to fight and die for country were cowards. They're cowards, long-haired hippie freaks. That's what they were. Long-haired, dope-smoking, sexually undisciplined hippie freaks. That's what we were. And that's what that peace sign really was, the rallying point of, was all the young people your age, because you're prime time to get drafted.
Yeah.
You are.
Yep.
You got a deferment. You got one deferment. You have a child, right? That might, but then people will say, but Tanner, don't you want to go die for your country? And your answer is going to be,
I'll die in this country if someone comes to take my family.
There you go. Okay. You sound like an America Firster when you talk like that. Anyhow, we started out with a very famous piece of music. I'm looking for music about peace. That band was great and international sensation. The lead singer, that lady met a very unfortunate end, but man, she was powerful. And this was a relatively peaceful period. This was recorded in 2019, and this song is, called Zombie. What's a zombie? A zombie is a living thing that's kind of on automatic pilot, not really thinking. It's a very, lyrically, it's a simple song. In your head. What's in your head? Zombie. Hey, zombie, what's in your head? In other words, we are engaged in war and violence without really thinking about it. And that's really the point of education. The point of education is to be aware of why we think what we think and to have some free will, some ability to sort through what decisions it is we're making. Because, most, when I was young, most young men did not want to go on. I was in my generation, a little bit younger than the guys that actually went to Vietnam. I was slightly too young. The war ended just as I got in the batter's box. And most young men that were my age didn't want to go for many reasons. Cowardice was certainly one of them. Uh, but the other reason was by the time we were conscious of the war in the late 60s, it looked unnecessary. It really, this military industrial complex thing that was opposed by the peace movement in the 60s and now is opposed by a peace movement in 2024. Uh, this peace movement, it had party identification. The peace movement was identified with the Democrat Party. That's why I was in the Democrat Party. And you go back to that yin yang symbol, one of the cornerstones of that yin yang philosophy is that one thing will turn into its opposite. So over the course from 1968, when Eugene McCarthy ran for president as a Democrat senator, from 68 to 2024, the parties have completely reversed what they represent. So when you vote for the Democrat Party, if you're watching me and you're a leftist, you got your Ukraine symbol on your X bio, and you believe in your government and you believe in defending democracy. And this is all something that is strange to an old-time liberal because that Democrat Party was hegemonically opposed to war. And it was the Republicans in 68 that represented the traditional, kind of jingoistic focus on America's foreign entanglements. And, of course, Richard Nixon won and took the country off the gold standard and brought Kissinger with them, and they made peace with China, and off to the New World Order we went. Very globalist. But the Democrat Party is transformed. It's become, and if you listen to Vice President Harris and her running mate Waltz and the various senators that back up this ideology, this post-World War II Democrat liberal order ideology, these people are all in on the military. That's what they're doing. They believe that Ukraine needs to be defended. The democracy in Ukraine, like what democracy? There's no democracy in Ukraine. There isn't even elections.
Yeah, didn't they cancel that because of the
You
wars?
cancel, that's right, cancel. So, okay, well, we got to defend the Ukrainians, the brave Ukrainians against the horrible, evil, bad man, Putin, which, not chilling for Putin. I'm not happy he invaded, and I'm not a Putin fan. But my point is, this was not possible in the Democrat Party of 1968. It was fighting this idea. And now here we are in 2024, and there's all this anti-Republican sentiment. But really, the peace movement is in the Republican Party. So if you believe in peace, if you want your children to avoid being drafted, if you'd like to avoid a nuclear war, if you'd like to work against a society that is based on killing, because that's really our strong suit here in the United States of America, is we're a very efficient killing machine. If you'd like to work against that and work for human well-being, hey, it's the election season. It's time to go to Trump Force 24, not necessarily because of Trump, but because of the ideology of republicanism. We've got to get past these people and get into what are we doing here? And it's so clear. You got a party that's all in for war, and you got a party that's half in for peace. Half. We're not all the way there. We're having a fight in the party. It's somewhat suspended for the election season. Somewhat. Not totally. But at least in the Republican Party, about half or a little bit more of the participants are focused on human well-being. And it's time to really do whatever you can to join the digital army here on X. Follow Royce White for Senate. Follow Royce White. Follow the Professor Penn podcast. Repost the links in your socials. Have the courage to talk about peace. I mean, if we go back over 143 episodes, we've put a lot of time into the various street corners of these conflicts. Yeah, if you're sitting on this street corner right here you see an autocratic, dictatorial Putin expanding his territory. I see it. But if you sit over here across the street, you see an autocratic, dictatorial, Democrat liberal order spreading its ideology at the point of a bayonet. So is one better than the other? I guess if you're on a team, you could say, I'm better than you are, not a boo-boo. But both of these street corners are missing really a much deeper idea, which is you've got self-governance on the one hand and empire on the other. And if we don't start to understand where our ideologies are taking us, as long as we stay caught up in the hype, it's just hype. You know what I want to get caught up in? Let me see if I can find this without too much. Probably can't find it. You know how that is when you want to look for something. Like when you want your car keys. They're never there when you want them, right? Where did I leave my car keys? All right, here we go. What I want to get caught up in is this ideology. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. I mean, that's pretty unifying, isn't it? That's unifying. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus, which, doesn't really even have to be said, but it's here in the text. I'm going to say it. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, when you come into contact with it, it will guard your heart and your mind from unnecessary conflict. This huge conflict broke out at 9 p.m. last night, Sunday night. I'm sitting at home. My phone starts blowing up. And I'm thinking to myself, man, 9 o'clock on a Sunday, we're going to have conflict? The softest time of the week, 9 o'clock Sunday night. It's rest time, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to have a cup of tea and
I'm
relax.
not going to get caught up in conflict like that. That's just, unnecessary. When a man's ways please the Lord makes even his enemies be at peace with him. That sounds good. That sounds great. If my ways please the unseen world, things I don't understand, if my life is in harmony with nature, if my life is in harmony, if I seek harmony, even my enemies are going to be at peace with. I mean, I got enemies, but let's be at peace. Come on. I mean, that's a great thing to strive for. Not, hey, we need a new appropriation for ATACMS missiles. That seems like a little bit of a strange. See how far we've gotten in our arrogance? Our arrogance. This is a good one. I like this one. No temptation has overtaken you, that'd be me. No temptation has overtaken me that is not common to all mankind. In other words, the things that I struggle with, they're not unique to me. God is faithful, and God will not let you be tempted beyond my ability. Okay. But with the temptation, God will also provide the way of escape that I will be able to endure temptation. Wow. That's peace. To know that the things that are dogging me, I also have a solution for if I just seek it. Whoa, I'm seeking it. And right now what we're seeking is peace. So I'm just going to let you know, if you're in Minnesota, we're going to be showing up at all the sporting events, the campaign for Senate. It's going to be showing up at the pro events, the college events. We're there for peace. We're protesting for peace. And a protest for peace, hey, you know what? In an election season, there's no greater protest for peace than looking at an incumbent who has for 18 years voted for every war and every war appropriation. Oh, she's very kind seeming, and everybody likes her seemingly, always smiling, always at the state fair, always with something nice to say about the Vikings or the Twins, always very upbeat, always. She even looks like an old girlfriend of mine. I've said that before. She looks like an old girl. And I think, wow, I think I like this person. But when you look at her record, not the hype, But you drill into the philosophy. Oh, war in the East, war in the West, war up north, and war down south. War. Everywhere is war with this incumbent. Everywhere is war. And how do you pay for war? You tax the people or you deficit spend. So you got debt slavery and you got piracy is the signature, the signpost, the defining policy of this incumbent, whose name I'm going to mention, Amy Klobuchar. Now, Amy Klobuchar has been consistently voting for war, and we're on the precipice of nuclear war. War. Do you want to go fight in a war and die?
You ask me this all the
I'm
time.
asking you again.
Yeah, no. hell
Great. I'm asking my audience, do you want to die in a war? Because we've got this crazy idea that we're living here in America and it's all going to work out. Well, let's just have a preamble and then we're going to get into the news that matters. Let's bookmark this idea. Could you please play number 2?
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you join us and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one.
Thank you, Tanner. That was John Lennon in a solo gig after the Beatles had dissolved. And in his very famous song, Imagine, as it was starting, Tanner said, I love that song. Did you listen to the lyrics carefully?
Yeah, I've always kind of listened to those lyrics. I remember discovering that song in like 2017.
And I thought to myself, wow, what a beautiful song. Because I discovered it in about, I don't know, the 70s. I
Yeah.
don't remember the exact year. And it was a great song. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this song is the theme song of the World Economic Forum. There's no religion, imagine it. There's no heaven, if you can imagine it. Hey, there's no possessions, if you can imagine it. This is and I hope you join, I hope someday you join up. I hope someday you join up. This is a recruiting song for worldwide global communism. And it sounds so nice. Can you imagine a world brotherhood of man? A world brotherhood. I hope someday you join up. And it's so beautiful that I have to say, having been there, when these ideas came up and they percolated up through popular culture and through entertainment, music, comedy, there must have been something extraordinarily demonic about it. It was all, not a conspiracy, but no coincidences. Or there was just a real impulse. What humans do, we experiment with stuff. Like when you're a little kid and you're crawling on the floor, you remember this, your kid put everything in her mouth. Everything. That's like the laboratory, right? Oh, hey, there's some dog shit. Let me put it in my mouth, right? And that's what we've done with this ideology. We thought, wow, we just went through this awful war, World War II. 88 million people died in 5 years. It ended with nuclear weapons. Whoa, look at that. Man can now destroy himself. Why are we doing this? What are we doing? And the real reason why we were doing it, which was Darwinism, got a pass. They stripped the reason there's Darwinism is to undo faith in the unseen world, the search for truth. That's what it is. It labels faith as an illusion. And it says, oh, we're the truth. We're science. You got to know the science. The science. And this was about the science. It was the science of human governance, applying science to the management of man's free will. And there must have been something well-intended because it's such a pure-sounding song, or they're just really, really way better at this than I ever thought, because this is an enduring song, and it's a communist, recruitment theme. And had John Lennon lived, he'd be 83 today. And you know what would have happened? He'd have divorced Yoko Ono. He probably would have been, who knows what kind of crap he would have got, because he had enough money to do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And he would have done it because, hey, there's no heaven. So it's whatever I want to do, right? He wasn't trying to live up. He wasn't self-governing because he had some fear of the Lord. He was without governance because he had hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's whatever John Lennon wanted to do. So had he lived, the impact of this song would have been diminished by all the crazy shit that we would have found out that he was into. But let's see what really happened. Could you please play number 3?
But it's suddenly been placed in total perspective for us. I'll finish this. They're in the hurry-up offense.
3rd down 4. Foreman. It'll be 4th down. Kavanaugh will let it run down for one final attempt. He'll let the seconds tick off to give Miami no opportunity whatsoever. Timeout is called. 3 seconds remaining. John Smith is on the line, and I don't care what's on the line, Howard. You have got to say what we know in the booth.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival. Hard to go back to the game after that news flash.
That's good, Tanner. So I was actually watching that game. Monday Night Football in those days, Frank Gifford, Dandy Don Meredith, and Howard Cosell. You could not miss Monday Night Football. We still only had 4 television stations, okay? This is pre-cable. Broadcast TV was large and in charge. And they came up with this concept, Monday Night Football, And everybody watched Monday Night Football. I remember, memory is such a strange thing. I was playing in an orchestra, and it would it would rehearse on Monday nights from 7 till 9. It was a very, very good orchestra. And I played with these people, and I would run home afterwards, and I'd get home just in time for the second half. And if you looked at that, that was the end of the first half. So just as I got home and sat down on the edge of my mom and dad's bed, because my dad was watching Monday Night Football, John Lennon was dead. And I loved the Beatles, and John Lennon was my favorite Beatle. And it was a big deal. He was a martyr. Not on the level of the four martyrs, okay? He wasn't there, because there was something a little bit strange about John Lennon. It just was. It wasn't really, never came out, because he got martyred. But there was a little bit something. We would know more about John Lennon had he not gotten shot. And that song, was kind of permanently elevated with his death. Imagine a world without people getting shot. That's really how are we going to manage the human will so nothing bad happens? Imagine it. It's possible. Well, that got into the popular consciousness, and it reflects a failed experiment. I'm not even going to say it was ill-intentioned at this time. There was probably ill-intentioned people hanging around the whole time. But the bulk of the people, it was just an effort to figure out why we were slaughtering each other and what could we do to change that. Maybe it's a religion. You're right. It's the religion of Darwinism, not the religion of faith in the unknown world, the search for truth. It was a mistake. They made a mistake. We could have gone right, but we went left. We chose the wrong path. And look where we are today, on the verge of nuclear war. Could you please play number 3A? Because this thing spread itself through all of entertainment. This is a funny piece. George Carlin on the 10 Commandments. Please, 3A.
Thank you. Now, folks, here's something else I got a problem with. The 10 Commandments. Here's my problem. Why are there 10? You don't need 10. I think the list of commandments was deliberately and artificially inflated to get it up to 10. It's a padded list. Here's what they did. About 5,000 years ago, a bunch of religious and political hustlers got together to try to figure out how to control people, how to keep them in line. They knew people were basically stupid and would believe anything they were told, so they announced that God had given them some commandments. Up on a mountain, when no one was around, God had given them the 10 Commandments. But let me ask you this. When they were sitting around making this up, why did they pick 10? Why 10? Why not 9 or 11? I'll tell you why. Because 10 sounds official. 10 sounds important. They knew if it was 11, people wouldn't take it seriously. So what, are you kidding me? The 11 Commandments? Get the f*** out of here. But 10 sounds important. 10 is the basis for the decimal system. It's a decade. It's a psychologically satisfying number. The top 10, the 10 most wanted, the 10 best dressed. So having 10 commandments was really a marketing decision. And to me, it's clearly a bullshit list. It's a political document artificially inflated to sell better. I'm going to show you how you could reduce the number of commandments and come up with a list that's a little more workable and logical. We're going to start with the first 3, and I'll use the Roman Catholic version because those are the ones I was taught as a little boy. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath. Right off the bat, the first 3, pure bullshit. Sabbath day, Lord's name, strange gods. Spooky language. Spooky language. Designed to scare and control primitive people. In no way does superstitious nonsense like this apply to the lives of intelligent, civilized humans in the 21st century. You throw out the first 3 commandments, you're down to 7. Next, honor thy father and mother. Obedience, respect for authority. Just another name for controlling people. The truth is, obedience and respect should not be automatic. They should be earned. They should be based on the parent's performance. Parents' performance. All right? Some parents deserve respect. Most of them don't. Period. You're down to 6. Now, in the interest of logic, something religion is very uncomfortable with, we're going to jump around the list a little bit. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Stealing and lying. Well, actually, these two both prohibit the same kind of behavior. Dishonesty, stealing, and lying. So you don't need 2 of them. Instead, you combine them and you call it thou shalt not be dishonest. And suddenly, you're down to 5. And as long as we're combining, I have 2 others that belong together. Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Once again, these 2 prohibit the same kind of behavior, in this case, marital infidelity. The difference is coveting takes place in the mind, and I don't think you should outlaw fantasizing about someone else's wife. Otherwise, what's a guy going to think about when he's waxing his carrot? But marital fidelity is a good idea, so we're going to keep the idea and call this one, thou shalt not be unfaithful. And suddenly, we're down to 4. But when you think about it, honesty and fidelity are really part of the same overall value. So in truth, you could combine the 2 honesty commandments with the 2 fidelity commandments and give them simpler language, positive language instead of negative, and call the whole thing, thou shalt always be honest and faithful, and we're down to 3. Thou shalt, they're going away fast. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. This one is just plain stupid. Coveting your neighbor's goods is what keeps the economy going. All right? Your neighbor gets a vibrator that plays "Oh Come All Ye Faithful." You want to get one too. Coveting creates jobs. Leave it alone. You throw out coveting and you're down to 2 now, the big honesty and fidelity commandment, and the one we haven't talked about yet, thou shalt not kill, murder. The 5th commandment. But when you think about it, religion has never really had a big problem with murder. Not really. More people have been killed in the name of God than for any other reason. All you have to do is... All you have to do is look at Northern Ireland, the Middle East, Kashmir, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and the World Trade Center to see how seriously the religious folks take thou shalt not kill. The more devout they are, the more they see murder as being negotiable. It's negotiable. You know? It depends. It depends. It depends on who's doing the killing and who's getting killed. So, with all of this in mind, I leave you with my revised list of the 2 commandments. Thou shalt always be honest and faithful to the provider of thy nookie. And thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone, unless, of course, they pray to a different invisible man from the one you pray to. 2 is all you need. Moses could have carried him down the hill in his pocket. And if they had a list like that, I wouldn't mind those folks in Alabama putting it up on the courthouse wall. As long as they included one additional commandment, thou shalt keep thy religion to thyself. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
That was the very funny and famous George Carlin. He was around in the 50s. I remember him in the 60s. What a career. But what he was doing was building on this John Lennon theme. Can you imagine a world without heaven, without religion? It's easy if you try. And what Carlin was doing, he was undermining the concept of the search for truth. Remember the first 3 commandments, pure bullshit, right? Because to him, he was a committed atheist, and he was spreading an ideology that he believed in, and what he believed and which he spread, which people take it in, is that more people died in the name of religion than anything else. And that's not true. People have been dying in the name of anti-religion. Now, you could say it was religion, but he really didn't mean it that way. What he was really saying is the Abrahamic religions, Judaism and Christianity and Islam, were responsible for all this killing. And there is a lot of killing that comes from the clash of those ideologies. But it pales in comparison to the killing that gets done in the name of Darwinism. And we're watching that all over the world every day. And one could say, and I will say, that the people in those religions that kill from within those ideological frameworks have given them up. And they've adopted Darwinism and wrapped their Darwinism in the cloth of faith. And that is using the Lord's name in vain. These commandments, these much maligned commandments that Carlin was pushing aside, are intended to bring about a peaceful world. The very world that Lenin was singing about. Somehow these people decided to experiment with going after you'll own nothing and be happy. And that was going to be the path to peace without any of the self-governance that is inherent in the people that are struggling to follow these 10 commandments. And people struggle to follow them. For example, King David was an adulterer. Paul was a murderer. I mean, these commandments are written for everyone. Even the holy struggle with them. And to say, thou shalt not murder. You will not steal. You will not give false testimony. I mean, these are ideas that lead to peace. And we all laughed our asses off as, my generation, the boomers basically threw off this traditional self-governance in exchange for money and sex. That's what we did. We financialized the economy and we took all the boundaries off of sexual behavior. And we did that in the 60s and 70s. I was on the front lines of that, and I've watched this, and I don't want to judge people. I don't want to fight with people. I just look at it from where I am sitting from my street corner, and I go, it was a failed intellectual exercise. It failed. Why do I know it failed? Well, that'd be the news that matters. Could you please play number 5?
As tensions arise over the Ukrainian conflict, the possibility of escalation between Russia and NATO grows ever more alarming. Now, Vladimir Putin's latest warning on the use of long-range missiles by Ukraine has sent a clear message to the West. The grim question, of course, is this: how close are we to a potential catastrophic nuclear standoff? Take a look at this report.
The threat of a nuclear conflict between Russia and NATO looms larger each passing day. As the West continues to arm Ukraine while choosing to ignore Russia's red lines, the Russian president has issued a stark warning.
If this decision is made, it will mean nothing less than the direct participation of NATO countries, the United States, European countries, in the war in Ukraine. This is their direct participation. And this, of course, signifies changes in the very essence, the very nature of this conflict. We will make appropriate decisions based on the threat that will be created for us.
Putin's ultimatum comes even as Britain's PM Keir Starmer is meeting US President Joe Biden in Washington to decide whether to let Kiev fire Western-provided long-range missiles into Russia. UK has already said it has no problem with Ukraine using its Storm Shadow missiles. The ball is now in Biden's court. West's dilemma is equally stark. NATO's deep involvement in the conflict, from intelligence sharing to weapons supply, has already blurred the lines of engagement. The pressure to support Ukraine is immense, especially as its front lines show signs of collapse. But the escalation is a dangerous game of chicken. If Russia doesn't retaliate, it risks appearing weak, potentially emboldening further NATO aggression. If it does respond, the world is pushed closer to a direct NATO-Russia conflict, a scenario that could quickly spiral into nuclear war. In this high-stakes game, there are no winners, only degrees of loss. It's time for both Russia and NATO to step back from the brink, prioritize diplomacy, and remember the lessons of history. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
All right, now to give us a sense of what is happening at this moment, we're being joined by our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, the American President Joe Biden is meeting with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, where the two leaders will discuss about green signaling, the use of long-range missiles by Ukraine. What are you picking up at your end? How likely is the American President Joe Biden likely to ratify this?
Yeah, so it's important to note that the United States had already given the go-ahead for Ukraine to go into Russian territory with its missiles. However, this is going to be a lot longer. The range is going to be a lot longer should President Biden agree with this measure. We're not expecting anything today, which is a Friday, but very soon U.S. officials say that the president is going to make that decision. Meanwhile, Britain and its new prime minister here in the U.S. for the first time since becoming Prime Minister Starmer wants to get the go-ahead with this Shadow missile that's from the UK for that to also be able to go deep into Russian territory. The reason he needs U.S. permission is because a lot of the parts for that missile, the Shadow Storm, is built here in the United States as well. So you kind of see this alliance between the U.S. and the UK. However, as you mentioned earlier, and the news that just broke, you have officials in Poland and in Germany who are very concerned that this is going to be very escalatory, considering the warnings from Vladimir Putin.
And also, that statement by Vladimir Putin where he said that if long-range missiles are used by Ukraine against Russia, then this would be clearly tantamount to the NATO military alliance being at war with Russia. How's the United States responding to this statement by Putin?
The United States has heard similar statements in the onset of the war, in the very beginning, when allied nations provided Ukraine with missiles. They said that, Russia was threatening to say that if any other country helps Ukraine, then they're a party to the war and whatnot. It's a very sensitive situation. There are many within the Biden administration themselves who don't think this is a good idea for President Biden to give the go-ahead. But considering the fact that he's often been criticized for not doing enough and doing just enough to keep Ukraine in the war but not have it win, he's in a very peculiar situation. But it's also important to note that the timing is also very curious. There's only 2 months left to the upcoming elections. And if Biden does this, then, a lot of questions need to be asked about the direction of the country.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us and getting us all those insights.
Thank you, Tanner. Thank you. So that's the Indian Street Corner. They're certainly concerned that things are going to spiral out of control. If we go back to the World War II period, there was 3 primary fronts of conflict in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Asia. And here we have here today an out-of-control conflict in the Ukraine, where we, the people, are contemplating allowing the Ukrainians to use long-range missile technology and to strike deep into the heart of Russia. And Putin has said that if that is the reality, there's a addendum to that reality. He's going to declare war on the United States. So, if that's where we're headed, it's going to be what it's going to be. But again, those of you who want peace, there's an election. And the election is stark. I mean, the choice, I don't like this guy, I don't like that. That has nothing to do with it. I don't like this, I don't like that. I don't like, that's so selfish, in my opinion. There's 2 conflicting ideologies. They could not be more clear in their intent. One is called the Democrat Liberal Order, and it seeks to impose that Democrat Liberal Order on every citizen of the world. It's a worldwide ideology. Then there's the limited concept of republicanism, which means I am self-governing. I'm a sovereign. I don't want to be involved all over the world. I don't want foreign entanglements. In fact, the way it was written up, we weren't even supposed to have a standing army. It was Truman after World War II that established the Truman Doctrine and has led us to this moment. We're on the precipice yet again of nuclear war. You know, you can go to the campaign website. You can join us at the events. You can get gear. You can show up. You can carry peace signs. You can talk to your neighbors. You can talk to your coworkers, your family. We got to get people out to vote. We got to get people registered to vote. We got to let people know that if they screw this up, you know, there's no guarantees of anything in the future. But if you vote for people that are into imposing their will on others, there's going to be war. There's just going to be war. You know, if I think I can impose my will upon you, I must think I'm superior and you're inferior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're not necessarily thinking that, then you have a group of people, your tribe is telling you that you're in the moral right.
Yeah, great. Isn't that great? Man, it sounds just like racism to me, rebranded in some kind of Democrat liberal order ideology. Yes, it is. Just like racism. Like all these people that say the world's going to end because of global climate change. They just remind me of these dudes that stood around on street corners in barrels and said, you know, repent, the end is near. They're the same people. Repent, the end is near. Repent, the end is near. They agree on the outcome. They just don't agree on the cause. This group over here believes that the cause of the end is near is sin, human sin. Oh, this group believes it's human sin. They're the exact same people. They're the exact same people. They think they know when the end is coming. Well, let me tell you how to slow down the end. Vote for peace. Get rid of all these neocon, military-industrial complex sons of that are willing to send my children to die in a war that I have no interest in. I have no interest in these wars. It's not my thing. Why can't we just say that? Why am I a coward? Why is it un-American to say, oh, America can't withdraw from its worldwide architecture of relationships and treaties? We can't. Why not? Because everything's going to go to hell if we do. Well, isn't everything going to hell anyhow? Seems like everything's going to hell. The Houthis successfully launched a long-range missile into central Israel just yesterday, Sunday. It's Tuesday night, so it's 2 days ago when you see this. The missile traveled over 1,200 miles from Yemen. It demonstrated a significant long-range capability from the Houthis. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Yemen would pay a heavy price for the missile attack. So things are just escalating. I mean, they're just everywhere you look, it's escalating. It's escalating in Russia, in Ukraine. It's escalating in the Middle East. And they're quiet over there in Asia right now. But it's actually escalating there too. Why? Because it's out of control. It's out of control. We're marching towards a cataclysm. And how do we stop it again? Vote. Vote for peace. Vote for don't tell me you don't like Donald Trump. I don't want to hear it. It's not relevant to voting for peace. Because if you're going to vote for Vice President Harris because you don't personally like Trump, you're voting for globalism, you're voting for the military-industrial complex, you're voting for war, you're a neocon, and in my book, you suck. And when I use the U word, I'm ready to fight, and the reason why I'm ready to fight these people is they're going to get me killed. So I'm going to tell you what, if you're going to get me and my family killed, you're going to kill me, and you're in between me and peace? Don't tell me I'm a Russian spy. I'm an American Republican. I just want peace. So please don't get in the way of my peace. Please. Because my drug is peace. Don't get between a man and his drugs. Have you heard that before?
No.
That's true though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't get between a junkie and his drugs. That won't turn out well for you. My drug is peace. I want my peace. People's getting in my way. What's your benefit out of this? You think you're always going to sit in your house with your 4 flat screen TVs, with your instant coffee and your pizza that you can bake at home, and you're going to sit there and watch Pornhub and smoke dope till the end of time, and none of this is going to affect you? Really? I mean, really? Come on now. Come on, look around. These missiles, they travel thousands of miles. When this thing cuts loose, this is everywhere all the time. You don't want that. You don't want it.
The different issues that they're like arguing too of like, oh, I'm voting for this person. I'm just going to leave it at this because I don't have much of an opinion on the topic. But what good is abortion rights if you get nuked? That's because a lot of people are trying to look to Kamala for the women's rights.
Women, if you're watching, you have friends. I have daughters. They believe in a woman's right to reproductive health as she sees fit. My mother, who organized this thing, she was the ringleader, has said to me for years, all the gains of women could be wiped away in an instant. And I think she was thinking like, oh, we're going to have some kind of regressive political victory, and all the rights of women are going to be taken away by a bunch of Christians. I think that's what she was thinking. But what you need to be thinking is, if there's a war and there's a breakdown of culture, oh, everybody's advances are going to be like, I won't be able to take a hot shower. I think I'm much more humble. I think a hot shower is a great advance. Like, do you like your hot shower?
Oh, I would agree. Yes.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking cold showers to prepare for there's no hot showers anymore. We're about to give up everything in pursuit of what? We don't even know what we're fighting for. But the Russians do. The Russians know what they're fighting for because we're fighting in their country. Our boys, the Ukrainians, and they are our boys because they're on our payroll and we tell them what to do. That'd be we the people. And why do I say we the people? Because all we have to do is take back our self-governance and we can dictate how this comes out. But our boys, the Ukrainians, I always like Royce when he gets mad at me. He always says, it's your guy. My guy went afoul. Yeah, okay, great. My responsibility. What he's saying, it's my responsibility. Our responsibility, we the people, is this group over in the Ukraine that has actually invaded Russia in an area of the country called Kursk. And they're in there. Thousands of miles of occupied Russian territory. Now the Russians have finally organized a counteroffensive, and they're going to expel these Ukrainians. And nobody knows for sure why they did this. Much speculation. Maybe they just want to overthrow the Russians. Who knows what they're up to? A better negotiating position, force the Russians to redeploy forces out of the eastern part of the Ukraine, to lessen the pressure on the Ukrainian forces that are in retreat. They're just in retreat. But, Putin avoided that. He avoided what he calls the Kursk trap. He does say, quote, we have to deal with these thugs who have made it into Russia. Thugs. He doesn't even call them an army. Here he goes on. The aim of the enemy in Kursk was to force us to worry, to hustle, to divert troops, and to stop our offensive in key areas, especially in the Donbass. But he didn't take that bait. They keep going and fighting in the Donbass, and they're making a lot of advances there. There is broad consensus in the military community that Ukraine's eastern city of Pokrovsk could fall at any moment. The Russian forces are only 5 miles away. If Pokrovsk falls, Russia will be in a position to gobble up the rest of Donetsk. And, that's where we're at here right now. We're at the collapse of the Ukrainian lines in the eastern Ukraine. The end of the war, right? Russian forces have overrun Novorodivka, and they've entered Rodivka, which are 2 towns east of this Pokrovsk. They're advancing. And maybe this talk of letting the Ukrainians use long-range missiles is an effort by the Western globalists to protract this war, perhaps expand this war. We don't know what's in their mind. I'm not even sure they got a mind. I don't know what these people are thinking. But they're getting ready to cut the Ukrainians loose and expand this war. CIA and MI6 leadership praise Ukraine's Kursk invasion for, guess what? Bringing the war home to ordinary Russians. Well, that's what happens when you invade somebody's country. The ordinary people look and go, oh, we've been invaded. That's what we've done. We, the people, have invaded Russia. And our CIA director, William Burns, and Richard Moore, who was the head of the UK's MI6 Foreign Intelligence Agency, spoke the first time, unprecedented. These two spooks were in a joint public event in London this past weekend where they praised Ukraine's invasion of Russia. Moore, the British leader, said that the Kursk invasion was, quote, typically audacious and bold on the part of the Ukrainians to try and change the game. And he said it brought the war home to ordinary Russians. Isn't that nice of them? That's so liberal of them to bring home the war to the regular people. Gosh, that's liberal of them. In the meantime, Victoria Nuland, who has left the government, but she was the architect of so much of this depravity, has been interviewed, and she's let some truth slip out. She was interviewed by Mikhail Zygar, an exiled Russian journalist, and let's just listen to a little of her stuff. Tanner, can you cue up a number 6 at 3149 and go to 3502?
And going slightly to the beginning of the 90s and the process of the enlargement of NATO after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there is a mythical agreement between James Baker and Foreign Minister Shevardnadze. And a lot of Russian authors write about it, that yes, there was nothing signed on paper, but verbally there was a mutual agreement that after the collapse of after the end of the Soviet Union, NATO doesn't go further to the east. And according to that mythical idea, which is very popular in Russia, that promise was broken by the Clinton administration. Was there any kind of dilemma in Clinton era to go east, to enlarge NATO or not?
First of all, I would note that Baker, who supposedly made this deal, categorically denies that he ever said it, as does George H.W. Bush. He says that it never happened and that there was never such a conversation. So that's a question mark. Look, I mean, I think the problem is, and it's a particular problem as Putin and Putinism have deepened and lasted so long, is this enemy image of NATO. NATO is a defensive alliance. It doesn't attack you unless you attack it first. So the idea of the Permanent Joint Council between Russia and NATO, and then the NATO-Russia Council, was that if we are not enemies, if we are not attacking each other, we can use these structures to advance our shared security interests together. And that was the goal. And so as NATO gets bigger, it's not getting bigger to attack Russia, it's getting bigger to ensure that if there is a reversal in Russia, which we now see, that those countries are protected, but also that we as a democratic family can act together in other parts of the world, as we later did in Afghanistan, as we later did in training in Iraq, because we understand each other. Had Russia been willing to be that kind of partner, had Russia been interested in being a NATO member, I think history would have been different. But it would have had to have maintained and strengthened and deepened the original idea of a democratic system. It would have had to have gone in the direction that Poland and Lithuania and Latvia went of real elections and real political parties and real free and open press and the security services being in their box and judiciaries providing
That's good.
humans
That's enough of Victoria Nuland in this segment. So what she said there was, as long as Russia joined the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, they were okay. That'd have been fine. But that's not what they did. And, I just pulled open Wikipedia here, which is, not a very right-wing source. I would say, would you agree with me that Wikipedia is rather liberal? Okay, well, let me just tell you, it's not a bastion of the right. And I just popped in here because she made the claim that Baker had disavowed any promise to the Russians about NATO moving eastward. And here's right in Wikipedia. You can look it up under, what is this? Well, I'm going to read it to you in a second. It says, Baker, at a press conference in Moscow on that same day, made public the resulting exchange, saying that the United States proposed, in order to mitigate the concerns of those who are east of Germany, to prevent the expansion of NATO forces in the eastern direction, and stated that the unification of Germany, according to the U.S. position, is hardly possible without certain security guarantees with regard to the advance of NATO forces or its operations to the east. Later in its February 13th press release sent to embassies, the U.S. State Department indicated that, quote, the Secretary of State made it clear that the U.S. supports a united Germany in NATO, but is ready to ensure that NATO's military presence, quote, will not expand further to the east. So Victoria Nuland, I don't know what street corner she's standing on there. It seems to be the street corner of the liars. I mean, I'm reading it right here. I mean, we could resolve it with further scholarship. Baker's assurances, i.e. that NATO would not expand to the east, were echoed by a number of other officials. So on February 9th, 1990, a similar guarantee, a united Germany linked to NATO, but provided that, quote, NATO troops will not go further east than they are currently located, was offered by Robert Gates, then the Deputy National Security Advisor to the U.S. President. He became the Defense Secretary. I mean, this goes on and on. So if you want to look this up, this article in Wikipedia is called Controversy in Russia Regarding the Legitimacy of Eastward NATO Expansion. Let me try that again. Controversy in Russia Regarding the Legitimacy of Eastward NATO Expansion. So it seems, kind of be, settled history.
2022.
This is another Russian myth. Good grief.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
an urban legend. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is the legend? What was true? Because there was a story first told by former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett that both sides were really close to the end, to the successful end of the negotiations, and then Prime Minister Boris Johnson interfered and stopped prevented Ukrainians from signing the deal. And then Ukrainian Representative Arahami kind of confirmed it, that yes, he said in an interview that there was some kind of advice from Boris Johnson to stop negotiating and to win this war militarily. Where is the myth? Where is the truth?
Well, look, I mean, only the negotiators know for sure because they were the ones in the room. But remember where we were. I think it was late March, early April, right, of 22. So Putin's dream that Kyiv would fall in 5 days, that he'd have control, was clearly not going to happen, and the Russian military was heavily bogged down and doing really stupid things like, 40 miles of open convoy and all of that kind of stuff. And they were starting to get pushed out of the north, et cetera, and it wasn't clear, how much he could hold. So Russia had an interest at that time in at least seeing what it could get. Ukraine obviously had an interest if they could stop the war and get Russia out. So this was something that was worked up. The Turks offered a venue. We were not in the room. We were actually not very much aware of what any kind of deal was. We just sort of said, look, we're here to support. If you want us to know more, know less, we're here. And we never were completely sure how empowered either negotiating team was, whether Putin really was ready to sign on to what his team had agreed to, and whether Zelensky was either. But relatively late in the game, the Ukrainians began asking for advice on where this thing was going. And it became clear to us, clear to the Brits, clear to others, that Putin's main condition was buried in an annex to this document that they were working on. And it included limits on the precise kinds of weapon systems that Ukraine could have after the deal, such that Ukraine would basically be neutered as a military force. And there were no similar constraints on Russia. Russia wasn't required to pull back. Russia wasn't required to have a buffer zone from the Ukrainian border, wasn't required to have the same constraints on its military facing Ukraine. And so people inside Ukraine and people outside Ukraine started asking questions about whether this was a good deal, and it was at that point that it fell apart. But I think that plenty of people, and perhaps Zelensky himself, were very suspicious that they were about to fall into a trap. And if Putin could have gotten that, completely neutered, demilitarized Ukraine for nothing, why wouldn't he take it?
That's good, thank you. So there we have Victoria Nuland letting us know that there was a deal on the table, and for technical reasons, there was no peace. Well, guess what? They thought they were going to win. CNN was nice enough over the weekend to run a rare act of journalistic service and courage, and they reported about how outgunned and outnumbered Ukraine's military is, that it's struggling with very low morale and mass desertion, that in the area of the current line of conflict, the Ukrainians are outnumbered 15-1, and that the whole deal is breaking down. So, hey, it's one thing to go to war thinking you're going to win. It's another thing to ask for peace when you're going to lose. And when's peace? Well, can we give peace a chance? That's another great one from John Lennon and the Beatles. Let's just give peace a chance. So, this is where we're at. We're here on the precipice of a nuclear war, and people are starting to cry out for peace. Well, okay, so when we get to a political realignment, a moment of realignment, the traditional, the many decades long theater looks like, okay, on the Republican side, we got a pro-military. On the Democrat side, we got a pro-people. Now it's shifted. Now the Democrat Party is pro-military and pro-corporation, and about half the Republican Party is anti-military and pro-human well-being. And now there's a schism that's developing on the Democrat side also, which we're going to talk about, schism. There's two schisms in both major political parties, and it's really the same schism. On the Republican side, you got your traditionalists, your neocon Republicans. They'd never vote for Trump. They're just not going to vote for him because they were always Democrats. Stop calling yourself Republicans. You're not. A Republican could not vote for a top-down authoritarian agenda. If you see that as a viable option, you don't see it from a Republican street corner. You're seeing it from the street corner of the Democrat liberal order. So please get out of our party so we can clarify ourselves. Because if we're not clear, if we conflict ourselves, if we're having a fight in our own house, hey, a house divided cannot stand. So quit coming over here for low taxes and be the Democrat you really are, okay? And get over there and stay over there, and let's just resolve this conflict in the Republican Party. Are we a pro-human party? Are we an anti-war party? Yes, we are. So all the people that are pro-human well-being, because, war is kind of anti-well-being, right? All those people, that's your rally point. So we got a schism in the Republican Party. It's over the nature of our military support, and it's also over the nature of trade, because, we got a lot of people hanging around the Republican Party for financial benefits. They rigged that system, and they want the money train to keep rolling. But really, the money train means we got an open border. That's not who we are. We over here in the Republican Party, we practice the concept of republicanism, of self-governance, of having a country in which we can self-govern. That's our shtick. That's our thing. You know, you can go to the Royce White campaign. You can go to TrumpForce47.com. You can talk to your friends. You can talk to your neighbors. You can knock on doors. You can make phone calls. You can be active on X. There's so much we can do right now when we stop being divided amongst ourselves. And in the Democrat Party, oh, they got a hell of a schism going on over there. It's the same schism. It just looks a little different. In the Republican Party, the schism's kind of over Ukraine. In the Democrat Party, well, let's just play number 6A.
Tim Walz, who is the vice president to be of Kamala Harris, is not opposed to genocide. He supports Israel. He supports funding Israel. He has not said anything against Israel. He supports all its previous wars on Gaza and destruction of Gaza. So we are here to remind him that our tax money is paying for this, and we are not happy with it.
People, local people in Rhode Island understand that when you're voting for these people, when you're supporting Tim Walz or Harris or Biden or any of the other politicians that are in power today, you're supporting genocide in Gaza. And their positions have been no different from Biden or Trump or anybody else. It's a uniparty that rules this country. It's one party that runs the foreign policy of America.
We say that Tim Walz is no friend of ours. We say the Democratic Party is not different than the Republican Party on the question of Palestine.
Well, there you have it. You have a fight there in the Democrat Party. You got a very anti-Israel group. They're Marxists. I mean, it's a Marxist crew there. And the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, is on a international organization. They sit on an international organization called the Progressive Alliance. The Progressive Alliance is, very pro-Palestinian rights, very Marxist. It's a Progressive Alliance. It's a Marxist alliance. So in the Democrat Party, the centrist Democrats, the people that, believe in freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to pursue whatever my dream is, those people, they're not really at home there because the DNC itself is in the Progressive Alliance, this international movement of Marxism. So, they're supporting the Palestinian liberation movement. They're anti-war in Israel. You can see they're very suspicious of Harris and Walz. They're really national populists. They just don't believe in God. They're Marxists. They see, you heard the guys say it's a uniparty, right?
Yeah.
Their diagnosis of the problem is identical to what's in the so-called American nationalist movement. It's the same diagnosis of the problem. Identical. A little bit different on what the solutions need to be. But once you get the same diagnosis, when you agree, now you have something to talk about. There's an old Chinese idiom, two people with the same disease can talk forever. We got the same disease. We see the same. So why are we fighting with these people? These are our potential allies. These folks are deeply suspicious of Donald Trump and the people that support him. But, if you're a leftist and you're an anti-genocide, I'm going to assure you, there's no peace movement over in the Democrat Party. You're an outlier over there. Your vote won't count. So if you want to go vote for, a protest vote, that's cool. People do that. That's America. But if you want to really vote for peace, really vote for peace. Really look at where the peace movement is. And we need to bring this out more and more as we go on down the highway. So the Democrat Party is split over socialism and worldwide war to make sure that socialism works, schism, and the Republican Party is split over war and the economic factors that are associated with slavery, drugs, and piracy. We got a realignment going on. And how we need to realign is if you love humanity, if you love your family, if you love peace, you're with the Republicans. If you like war and you like poverty and you like illness and sickness and disease and depravity, hey, Got to call them like I see them. Well, there's a lot we didn't get to today, and we're going to come back at it. But the basic idea here is that we're a peace movement. And we need to get our minds around that. We need to market that. We need to talk to our friends and neighbors about that, not to get elected, but to stay alive. Look at the news that matters. These people think they got it, kind of managed, and they're playing this game with each other, this big boys game, this grand, competition, this grand Darwinish, showdown. Who's the baddest? The problem with this is when it spins out of control, when it goes too far, all these people that are playing the game will retire to their bunkers and their limitless food and the suspension of all sexual mores, because they're going to have to repopulate. So it'll be like 20 women for every old, decrepit globalist, as crazy as that's going to sound, because that's what it is. I mean, that's where we're headed with these people. So please, again, I don't want to hear about Donald Trump or that this or that or thus cosmetic reason why you don't like, the Christians or there's so many issues. Get down to the issue that matters, your ass. Do you want to live? And if you're sure you're going to live under a group that's funding a worldwide expansion of the military, wars in 3 theaters of conflict, threats of nuclear war, if you think you're going to survive this, if you think it's all a bluff, hey, vote for the bluff. We're going to see what happens. If you think that sometimes people overpromise and underdeliver, sometimes they fall short, sometimes their best laid plans go astray. If you want to build in, kind of a buffer against failure, just vote for peace. And then we'll sort it out after the vote, right? I think you have to secure your survival first. Yes, ladies, there's many legitimate beefs in here. I get it. I get there's many legitimate beefs. If you're in a minority group, you go, these people are racists. Well, there's nothing more racist than a nuclear bomb falling on your head. Let's start there. You agree with me about that?
Yeah.
That's kind of the ultimate, isn't it?
It's just you can't worry about all the things that you want fixed don't matter if you're going to die.
There you have it. Spoken so eloquently by Tanner, a young man with children. We're going to go out. We're going to play. I've played this 2 other times, but I'm playing it again because I figured something out last night that was very disturbing to me. We're going to play Bob Marley at the absolute height. His voice, his creativity, his clarity, his ability to just sing profoundly it's staggering when I watch this. And I found out last night that when he sang like this, he was dying. These were his dying songs. He was well on the way to being dead. And I didn't know that. He knew it. He knew that he had forsworn and not accepted Western medical treatment for the disease that would eventually kill him. He didn't do it. He didn't go for the slavery, drugs, and piracy model. He rejected it, and he died. So when I hear this music, knowing that in his mind, when he walked up to this microphone, he knew he was possibly going to die, it brings greater clarity to the mastery and the majesty of the message he was delivering, which was, we don't need any more trouble. We don't need war. Let's stay away from, we don't need any more trouble. We got enough trouble without a world war that destroys culture. So on that note, I want to thank you for being here. A little bit tired this morning. It's a lot of work on this campaign. Thank you for letting me do the best I can. I look forward to seeing you again. All things will pass. Thank you, God, for giving strength to the weary. And I look forward to seeing you soon again.
Have a good night, everybody.
one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. Well, everywhere is war. This your war. And until there's no longer first class nor second class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance to the color of his eyes, I've got to say war. And until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard to race, this your war. Cause until that day, the dream of lasting peace, world citizenship, and the rule of international morality will remaining but a fleeting illusion to be pursued, but never attained. Well, everywhere is war. This your war. War in the east, war in the west, war up north, war down south. This a war, rumors of war. And until the ignoble and unhappy regime that hold our brothers in Angola, in Mozambique, South Africa, yeah, subhuman bondage, yeah, has been toppled, yeah, utterly destroyed. Well, everywhere is war. This your war. War in the east, war in the west, war up north, war down south. And this a war. Rumors of war. And until that day, the African continent will not know peace. We Africans will fight, we find it necessary. We know we shall win. We are confident in the victory of good over evil, of good over evil, of good over evil. Well, everywhere is the philosophy which hold one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. Well, everywhere is war. Everywhere is war. Everywhere is hey, hey, we don't no more trouble. We don't need no more trouble. happiness. You're sad enough without your woes. Come on and speak of love. Sad enough without your foes. Hey, we don't need